Guillermo Del Toro's Pinocchio is not only a great film, it's not only the best Pinocchio film, but it might be the most unique, amazing, perfect, brilliant, modern adaptation of a classic story I have ever seen. Also, Del Toro claims that this film was made via stop motion. He's even gone so far with these claims that he's released, little behind the scenes things to trick everyone into thinking he made this via stop motion. But I have seen the whole film, and I'm telling you, there is absolutely no way a man and a crew of people behind this man could make something via stop motion look so beautiful, capture so much imagination and wonder into a thingy that is a film. It's just not possible. The amount of just kind of imagination and sheer willpower and creativity and just spectacular, impossible amounts of patience, incredible talent and patience combined into a thing, it's just not possible. They kind of made something so beautiful and wondrous and amazing via stop motion. I just don't believe it. The only way he could have possibly have done this is via magic. Black magic, the dark arts. Del Toro must have done some spells and magical things and conjured some kind of demon, devil or something like that. Some kind of monstrous thing and made a deal. He would have sacrificed some kind of goat or something. Hopefully a goat. Hopefully not a child, because that would be awful. And then Del Toro would ironically be the monster, the thing that he hates most. Although, now I'm thinking about it, Del Toro seems to love monsters, and at the end of all his movies about monsters, which is all his movies, it turns out that the monster in the end was man. And so that would actually make a lot of sense if Del Toro himself was a monster, because he is a man, if he had sacrificed a child to bring him this brilliant filmmaking skill that he has. Oh my god, Del Toro sacrificed a child to make this film. That was worth it. That child's death was worth it, because this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my entire life. Pinocchio is an amazing story, and we've had that classic Disney film from the 40s or, back in these olden days, and somehow this year we have somehow had the most atrocious, hollow, disgusting piece, I don't have real words to describe the Disney's remake of Pinocchio that came out this year. All I can say, just makes me sick thinking about it. The fact I had to bring up that film in this review, I mean, I didn't have to, but I'm going to, because I like to talk about things that suck, that deserve to be told that they suck. It brings me pleasure, because I am awful. Somehow we had that film in the same year we had this film, and via both these films, we are shown exactly how not to and how to make and do an adaptation. Honestly, the fact that both of them come out in the same year and that both of them now exist, it's like for future filmmakers at film school, this will be something they study. They will look at these two films and go, this is how not to adapt, this is how to adapt. And I don't know, in some way it's kind of beautiful that we have something so atrocious and now something so spectacular to compare and contrast. It's just, for a learning exercise for future filmmakers, it's perfect. So how does Del Toro make the perfect adaptation? Well, the film feels at its essence a Pinocchio story. It goes through all the same beats, we go through all the same familiar aspects of the Pinocchio tale, and at its core it is about life and what it means to be alive, what it means to be a real boy. But also, Del Toro kind of adds so many of his own kind of personal themes that he's loved to kind of tell in other films, and in this film, it's kind of surprising at first when they first appear, the biggest one being the whole kind of, there's just a shadow of war over the film. War's shadow over this film is kind of horrifying and terrifying and very melancholy and sad, but the way he plays with it and the way he makes it work for his story is amazing. There is so much kind of discussion and ideas played around with fascism. Fascism plays such a big part in this movie, which at first really overwhelmed me. It kind of, comes not out of nowhere, but it really hits you with a big emotional punch very early on with his kind of themes of war and what it's talking about with all these things, but then how it plays into the idea of what it means to be alive, and it really starts to focus on death and how in death that brings, meaning to life. And this little Pinocchio boy who's trying to be a real boy, is trying to find out what it means to be alive, and through circumstances and situations, which I won't spoil here, but it's so brilliantly crafted with this idea of death, and really focusing in on how death is a part of life, and how life doesn't really have a meaning without that idea that death is coming for us all, and the way it connects us all, and the way that is part of life, and just all those things playing around with each other in this really harrowing, heartbreaking way with the war and the fascism and all this horrific, really intense stuff. But Del Toro never loses sight of that kind of whimsical fairy tale nature of the tale of Pinocchio. And then with his reimagining adaptation of Pinocchio, he's able to have these harrowing war, horrific moments of death and destruction and horror, but then still have that whimsical, fun kind of things, but then he weaves them together in a way that could feel really tonally jarring and not work. But because Del Toro, as I said before, sacrificed a child to be the greatest filmmaker ever, he somehow manages to do it. And it's just wondrous. It's so brilliant. There are so many moments of this film that made me feel so sad. So, like, the first 10 minutes and then the last 10 minutes are just so well made. It's so powerful. It really, like moments of this film hurt. Like, there's pain in this film. But then there's beauty and wonder and awe. And he just blends it all together so well. Yeah, I mean, this film came out on Netflix yesterday. I've already seen it twice. I went to do my review last night, but I was so overwhelmed with the film, I just had to let it sit. I just had to go to bed. I was like, I don't even know how to deal with this film. I'm just going to have to go to bed. And then before I wanted to do this, I'm like, I just got to watch it again. It's that good. The father and son relationship we get with Geppetto and Pinocchio is brilliant. And we get a lot more Geppetto in this film than I feel like we've ever gotten in a Pinocchio film. And the film is all the better for it. But we also get this kind of contrast to this other father and son dynamic that plays into the whole war, fascism kind of angle to it. And the way they kind of are, paralleled and contrasted and, all those things, comparing words, juxtaposition or another filmy thing, I'm a fancy film guy, I know words. The juxtaposition is really, really brilliant. And it's like so well crafted in a way where it complements each other in really challenging, interesting ways. And I just found that kind of one of the highlights of the film. And one of those things that he's brought, these new things he's brought to the adaptation that just kind of wowed me. I mean, to be fair, everything wowed me. So to say it wowed me, it's kind of like that's just like par for the course with this film, but it's really wowed me. As I've said many, many, many times, the film is really steeped in this whole war, fascism, just the horrors of war, and it's pretty powerful and intense at times. There is even a point, because we still go through, some of the same film beats, or most of the same kind of story beats, where Pinocchio, he goes on tour and he's like, I'm a Pinocchio puppet boy, but I've got no strings on me, and, all that stuff. And at one point, we even start getting into this kind of Captain America-esque propaganda situation with Pinocchio, and it's like, that doesn't sound like that should work on any level, but it works so well. It's so well written, so well crafted. It's harrowing and brilliant and amazing, and it's a challenging film. Like, I don't really know if this is for kids a lot of the time, although maybe it totally is, because it's nothing, like, there's no gore and horrors and disgusting parts of the war, but it's really challenging on, like, the ideas level and the things the children, Pinocchio and this other little boy, go through. Maybe it is a good kids film, I don't know, but it's very harrowing. I haven't enjoyed something that made me feel this sad for a long time. I'm now just realizing I saw a war film this year that made me feel the same way. All's Quiet on the Western Front? Yeah, All's Quiet on the Western Front has the exact same feeling, and that's like a full-blown war film, all war, all the time. And this is a film about Pinocchio, so you wouldn't think they would feel the same, but they do. This film even excludes my favorite part of the Pinocchio story, which I won't say what it is, but it's pretty obvious which is the best bit, because there's one bit that's particularly fun and just visceral and insane and just crazy, and somehow this film excludes that entirely. But the thing it does in replacement, feel like when we get to that bit and I realized what they were doing instead, I was like, oh my god, Del Toro is a genius. This is insane and wild, and I just thought it was so well done. And that scene that I love, my favorite part of Pinocchio, wouldn't fit in this film. So yeah, it's that good of an adaptation that my favorite part of the original story isn't in it, and I'm glad for it. That's how good this film is. So the stop motion, writing, direction, filmmaking, all the things are so good. So how's the cast? Well, they're perfect. They're so good. Oh, they're so good. It's kind of insane. Gregory Mann plays Pinocchio. I've never seen him in anything before, but he brings this brilliant optimism and this little childlike wonder to Pinocchio, this fresh-eyed, I'm new to the world like vibe, and this brilliant energy that I just absolutely loved, and he just nails the comedy. There are so many little comedy bits with him and some really weird situations that Pinocchio goes through that are very new to this story. And I just thought he was brilliant. He killed it so good. Ron Perlman is in a role that I could not recognize him in. The second time, I'm like, is that Ron Perlman? We have John Turturro in some random little role. Tilda Swinton. Like, we've just got people all over the place that are just doing so well. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi is the little cricket. The little conscience cricket boy. And he's amazing. It's so good to see him in something this year that isn't atrocious. That was a lot of fun. He brings a lot of life and energy and warmth to the cricket, conscience boy, cricket's man. But the man who steals the show and is just perfect in every way is Geppetto, who is played by Walder Frey. David Bradley is so good in this role, it hurts me. It hurts me how good he is, because I'm worried I'm going to have to, because I love films, I'm going to have to watch another film in which he is not playing Geppetto in that film, and I'm just going to miss him. It is... I mean, every time I see him, since he was bloody... whatever the hell that guy's name is, Filch in Harry Potter. I'm like, he's Filch in Harry Potter. Then he rocked up as Walder Frey in Game of Thrones. I'm like, oh, now he's definitely just going to be Walder Frey forever. Then I saw him as Doctor Who, original recipe Doctor Who, in subsequent episodes of Doctor Who, and I'm like, well, he's the original Doctor. And now in this, I'm like, no, he's Geppetto. He just plays the character so well. Just from those first 10 minutes, we get this incredible introduction to the story that is just heartbreaking and devastating and melancholy and sad, and you know where it's going from the get-go, and he brings this tired, sad, pained, gruff, just emotional performance, and every single line of dialogue he just kills. I loved him. He's so much more like a focus of the film. Geppetto is in the film so much more than I feel like he is in the other stories. Like the other Pinocchios I've seen, I feel like he's at the start and the end. He's in the whole film this time, and he just kills it. He steals the movie. It's just wondrous. I loved him so much, and there are some really, really intense moments. Like, there is a drunken moment towards the start that killed me. It was so sad and brilliant, and his performance, it's probably the best of the year. It floored me on every... I love this movie! Go check it out! It's on Netflix, so it's free, and you can sit and cry by yourself on your couch or with your loved ones. They'll be crying too, so you won't feel embarrassed, because it's so sad. It's just so sad. But wondrous and amazing, and just, it's all the things. It's all the emotions, all the quadrants of feeling. I think this is my favorite Del Toro film. But Pan's Labyrinth is pretty good, isn't it? Oh, and there's that other one that I can't remember the name of, but he's a good filmmaker, so that's a big call. And, it's still very new and fresh, so the hyperbolicness nature of my review, it comes off strong at first. But I have seen it twice in 2 days, and it was way better the second. It was somehow great, and then even greater the second time. Oh, and one last thing, and I know I've just said everything's amazing and amazing, amazing, but it's just so amazing. But the score as well, it was just amazing.